the apex score.
Nifty is up 26 points.
Well, that was the day so far. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Closing Bell. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Nigel and Mangalam. It's an all-boys show once again. Guys, hi. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
It's a regular feature. When the markets are not doing very much, we have Mangalam on.
Yeah.
Mangalam, I think you should spice things up.
What do I spice it up with? It's 36 points off lows, 36 points off highs. We're absolutely in the middle of that range.
Spicing up things and markets have got nothing to do with each other. I mean, independently.
Yeah, independently, yes, most definitely. We'll have a lot of conversations.
My
but
director
perhaps,
says you want to sing a song. Is it true?
I don't think so. I can't hear the director on my...
All right, let's
go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you said, not very much happening at all. And, yesterday was what? The first 45 minutes saw action, the last 45 minutes saw action. And today, it's something similar, although we don't know how the last 45 minutes will pan out. But bulk of the action finished at 11 o'clock. I mean, that was the market. I mean, you had a gap up which got sold. There was a rebound. But 11 o'clock onwards has been, the same 30, 40 odd points. Very, very small trading range after 11. I think about 20, 25 points or so post 11. The day's high is, 18,324, I think. Yeah, it is, which is nothing but the 61.8% retracement of the recent fall. I'm talking about the small mini sort of dip that we saw from the 16th of November high to the low 2 days back. So today's high exactly is at the 61.8% retracement. That would be the level to take out if you want to see more gains. Today's high basically. Outperformance in PSU banks. There is the bank nifty consequently, which is doing okay. And small caps are not doing too badly. Actually, the small cap index is higher. Fertilizer is a pocket which is doing well. I mean, you have something always, right? PSU banks or defense, or today it is fertilizers. And we'll talk more about that in a bit. And the sell-off in new age stocks continues. I mean, Nykaa, Paytm, Zomato, delivery started late on the downside, but that has joined in as well. So, no real reprieve there. Stocks, I think, are off the lows of the day, but down broadly as a pack. It's going to be interesting if we see another leg of action, Nigel, in the last hour or so. Let's hope we do, because this is pretty unexciting stuff to report on.
Well, that's right, but the kind of call writing that we're seeing, that's giving you a sense that the bears believe that 18,350, they've got that level. 18,350 to around 18,400. And I say this because the kind of open interest build-up we're seeing at around that 18,300, the premium out there is around 50 rupees. Just take a look at that. And the total open interest is 1.7 crores shares. That's a large proportion out there. So those writers, they're playing that 18,350 holds out. Even if you pull up the 18,400 call, remember that's close to around 110 points away from current levels. And the markets are up close to around 50 points. But the premium there is lower. We have expiry that will play out tomorrow. So that's clearly telling you that there is writing at those levels. You're not expecting a big downtick. But for now, the positioning is such that 18,350, 18,400 doesn't get broken. However, if there is a surprise coming from the US markets, whether it's with regard to the minutes or there is some domestic trigger that comes about, we could see a massive short covering bounce. That's only if we get past that 18,350 to around 18,400. Mangalam, what else?
Well, Nigel, you're talking about the 18,300 call. I was just looking at people who are hoping that the market stays in a range, and they usually do that by selling both the call and the put. 18,300 call and put together is about 100 odd rupees a straddle, and that means that they're playing for a range of 18,200 to 18,400. But what's actually taking place right now with the way the Nifty bank is moving higher, the way the mid-cap index is outperforming more advances than declines, there are a lot of people who believe that if the market does go past that hump, if there is any short covering, they're preparing for that as well. Because just as we speak, and these are options that expire tomorrow, 18,600 call and 18,700 call, both of them are seeing some open interest built up. Between the two of them, they've added almost 50 lakh shares for a premium of one and a half odd rupees. So maybe, if one is buying that with the hope that this is a punt and the market goes higher, then they would be better positioned to go ahead and benefit from that. We don't see signs of that yet, but for now, the Nifty bank's outperformance is something that we'll have to monitor.
Okay, all right. Well, gentlemen, let's get straight to what we have lined up on the show, and then we'll take the individual stocks one by one. Inox Green Energy makes a subdued debut on Dalal Street. Details of the listing and the key management takeaways, they are lined up, and we learn from sources that a deal is brewing in Adar Punawala's Punawala Fincorp. Exclusive details lined up on the show. Interglobe Aviation, that's surging away in trade on the back of a brokerage upgrade. More details on that. And finally, we'll talk all things market. Vaibhav Sanghi of Avendus Capital Alternate Strategies will be joining in.
Okay, then how should you position yourself in the last hour of trade, and are there any trades to take? Mitesh is joining us for exactly that as always. Mitesh, hi, good afternoon. The last 45, 60-minute move, will it come, not come? We'll find out. But as of now, what's your sense? Is there a trade to take or wait and watch?
Prashant, I think, I heard you all guys talk about levels, option strikes where the activity is happening as well as retracement areas. Broadly, I think one more thing which one can possibly add here is that most of the volatility indicators are not showing any kind of directional bias, which means that it's likely that the market may not break this range of about 18,150, which was the low which we made yesterday, to about 18,400. So I think next few days still might be contracting, still might be consolidating, and therefore an aggressive trade on the index I think doesn't happen as yet. So we're trading with more of stock-specific bias. I think we had some calls on fertilizer stocks earlier, and then I talked about the HDFC group. HDFC Life is a recommendation right now. That's a stock which is breaking out, so buy with a stop at about 540 for targets of 575 here. And Indigo is something, which early in the day slipped my radar, but I think the breakout is very strong here. The 200 average has been taken out. The price and volume is very, very positive. So this is likely to see more traction. Take a slightly deeper stop loss since the stock has moved up around 1857 is what I recommend. And 1965, 1970 is my target area.
All right, Mitesh, hang in there and take your point on the volatility index perfectly, because, this morning the India VIX actually hit a low, which was a 52-week low. In fact, could have been one of the lowest levels that we've seen in the last few years as well, given the elevated levels that we saw the India VIX at on account of pandemic-related issues and geopolitical issues too. So sub 14 is what the sub 12 actually this morning was. Sub 13 was actually what the India VIX was at this morning, and then now it's just sub 14. A bit of a recovery from the lows, but still at extremely subdued levels. So let's see where this one goes to. But as far as individual stocks are concerned, a lot is taking place, and exclusive sources tell us that there may be a deal brewing in the other Punawala's Punawala Fincorp stable. Nisha joins in with more on that. Nisha.
Thanks so much. Yes, never a dull moment when it comes to this company, it seems, because Magma Fincorp, the erstwhile name of this particular company, Punawala Fincorp, was, remember, acquired in Feb 2021 by Adar Punawala. And now we gather from sources with direct knowledge, and at least 3 independent sources have confirmed to CNBC-TV18 that Punawala Fincorp is looking at selling its housing finance business, which is a 100% subsidiary of the company. We do gather from sources that the valuation expectation of the seller is about 3 times of the net worth of the housing finance arm, which, remember, had reported 1,100 roundabout crores of net worth in September end quarter. Now, we do gather that a select group of private equity firms, and some may be strategic, also are the ones which have been chosen by the investment banking firm which has been hired to take forward this deal process. When we reached out to the company, Punawala Fincorp did state that our intention was to raise some growth capital in the company, for which they had announced in May 2022 about up to 15% minority stake sale. In the event of that, really, that breakthrough not happening for the company, and it's a cash guzzling business, they have opened it to a controlled sale deal as well, is what we gather from sources with direct knowledge. And now it is to be seen that which are the private equity firms which could be really interested, because we have seen a huge momentum in control deal from the private equity firms in the past.
All right, Nisha, thank you very much for that. So that's a story which we'll continue to track as it develops. Deepan Mehta is joining us now, Director at Elixir Equities. Deepan, good to have you with us here. Thank you very much for your time. Any strong convictions about the market, or it's looking a little muddled? I mean, this is also that part of the year, right, when volumes notoriously dry up, as do market participants. I guess not quite there yet. That'll really happen in December. But the market's gone a little quiet on an overall basis.
Yeah, good afternoon, Prashant, and thanks for having me on your show. You're right. I think market has gone quiet, but individual stocks, there's a lot of action. Yesterday we saw Easy Trip plan of the way, it moved up. Something or the other is always in focus, moving up by 8, 10, 12% or so. And all of these moves are based on positive news flow or exceptionally good results or something which the management has to disclose. So there's a lot of stock-wise action. And by and large, portfolios are doing fine. So let's not go by the broad headline number of the sensex and nifty, but underlying, I think the strength is still there. Most days advanced decline also is quite favorable. And on the whole, I think we are just about absorbing a pretty decent second quarter earnings season, which has just got over. And maybe, a few ideas also have come through over there. So I'm not too perturbed. And I think if investors stay stock focused, then this is a great time, and typically Jan, Feb are good months for the market. So you could, any money invested now could perhaps give good returns in the next 3-4 months as well.
Okay, all right. Hi, Deepan. Good afternoon. Deepan, in the past, I recall maybe a few years ago, we had chatted about NBCC. The full world was gung-ho on it. And then the story went wrong. Now it seems it's coming for another round. The stock is up close to 10% today. I'm hoping that we'll have the management talking to us, in the next couple of days. But what do you make of the stock? It's at around 41. I recall when the stock was at much higher levels, and it was a consensus buy actually on the street.
Yeah, Nigel, a big disappointment in NBCC, and we actually booked losses for ourselves and our clients. The stock never really, despite a 6-7 year type of order book, the company management was never able to deliver in terms of execution. And even now, I think just about we are seeing gradual pickup in execution, but nowhere near the potential that the company, given its position, given its PSU status and order book position, it's nowhere close to what they should actually be doing. And I think if you look at the picture, the business is good, the order book is fantastic. There were upsides as far as real estate prices moving up in NCR region are concerned. And there are many positives going for NBFC, but something is wrong in the way the management is executing the projects, one. And two, there are issues with the quality control of the company. If you look at some of the media reports, many of the buildings which they have delivered, of course, the contractors have done the work, but they're responsible for the management of the project. A lot of complaints have come as regards the quality of the construction. So that's a bit of a concern. Of course, these are things which the management and the company can easily address and improve. And hopefully, I think, next few quarters should be exceptionally good for the company. But I think this is not the time to buy NBFC. I want them to, declare 3-4 exceptionally good quarter numbers and then perhaps take a view on the stock. There are many other very good ideas in the real estate play, engineering, construction industry, which have a far better consistency of performance and perhaps even better visibility.
Deepan, I'm looking at Maruti right now. The stock's doing well, virtually closer to the high point of today's trading session, has done well this year as well. But, there is a note from UBS this morning. They've put a target at 12,000 odd rupees for the stock, where they say that the company would be a big beneficiary as diesel itself has derailed because they don't get any revenue coming in from diesel. The world's moving to EVs, and, when Maruti was lower, there weren't too many takers for it. Now that the stock's rallied and when these, 5-digit plus sort of target prices come, do they scare you, or do you believe that Maruti still has a bit of a runway?
Mangalam, first a disclosure, we and our clients are invested and we have a bias to that extent. And mind you, although the stock has appreciated in the last 1 year or so, it's been a huge laggard if you take a 3, 4, 5 year type of a return. And last 4 or 5 years, auto industry and Maruti really have been quagmired in some sort of a issue or the other, whether it was BS6 or then higher interest rates, higher petrol prices, and now the pandemic, and then there was the shortage of semiconductors. So this industry and Maruti has seen a lot of problems. It has been trial by fire for them. There were certain concerns around them not having decent models in the UV space. I think the management has addressed all those concerns, and now I think is an absolute blue sky scenario for a company like Maruti. They are sitting on very good order book position. All their new models which they have come out with have been huge successes with long waiting lists, and cyclically also the industry has picked up. So I think a 5-digit number, 10-12,000 stock price for Maruti is certainly possible in the next 3 to 6 months or so. Base effect also will help the company. Operating leverage also will result in higher profits. So we are very positive on Maruti, and I would say among the top 1 or 2 stocks in the auto industry that one should be invested in.
All right, what we'll do is we'll take a quick commercial break at this point. Our first on the show, as we take that break, a quick programming note. To fully commit to the cause of bridging the gender parity gap with the workforce, CNBC-TV18 is all set to lead charge with a one-of-a-kind mega initiative, Future Female Forward, the Women's Collective, presented by HSBC. The initiative will be officially launched through an exclusive on-ground event on Friday, November 25th, in the presence of Shireen Ban, Managing Editor of the channel, Hitendra Dave of HSBC, and other women leaders of India Inc. Also in attendance will be some of the most influential voices from business, entrepreneurship, and entertainment. Don't forget to tune into CNBC TV 18 this Friday, November 25th, 5:30 p.m. onwards.
Excuse me, what will you do with your first salary?
So I would like to present my first paycheck to my father.
I'll buy a laptop for my younger brother.
I will save some money and with the rest I'll get an AC for my dad's room.
I'm going to start a life insurance policy. I think it's very important for my family's security.
A long journey through new materials, technology, and style has taken us where we've never been before. The new Rado, Captain Cook Plasma High-Tech Ceramic Rivik Roshan Special Edition. Feel the difference. Rado.
Odisha, the unstoppable force, welcomes you to highlight Odisha's emerging industrial aptitude. Our visionary leadership introduced an inspired idea, the Make in Odisha Conclave. Odisha is ready to enthrall you all over again. Align with the growth ideas from thought leaders, finding ways to explore the zenith and beyond, showcasing skills, encouraging startups, enhancing women-led entrepreneurship, developing our designated key focus sectors, celebrating culture like never before. We are ready for us.
I invite you all to the Make in Odisha Conclave. Come join the juggernaut.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The Nifty continues its march onwards from the lows of today's trading session. It's conquered 18,300, and the biggest contributor to that has to be the Nifty Bank, which has been doing well, but now only has extended its gains, up almost 350 points for that index. Leading it higher are the usual suspects. We have ICICI Bank, which is at the high point of trade, but in just the last few minutes, we've seen a big move come in on IndusInd Bank as well. So ICICI Bank, of course, is the biggest contributor on the Nifty as well as the Nifty Bank, but IndusInd Bank too has moved with some gusto in the last few minutes. But that's about the secondary market. Let's talk about the primary market action now. Inox Green made a subdued debut on Dalal Street. Vivek is here with the details of the listing and the key takeaways from what the management had to say to us earlier. Vivek, one of those rare stocks this season where we've seen subdued listing.
Well, absolutely. It's been quite a muted start as far as Inox Green Energy is concerned. And, not very surprisingly, given the fact that, even the grey market premium was indicated a slightly muted debut. But let's have a look at, what exactly the company does and what is it that they were intending to do via the IPO. The main reason the company went in for an IPO was, twofold. Inox Wind, the parent company, actually had quite a bit of debt. So to pare down the debt on that front and also to pare down its own debt. So 740 crore via the IPO route, a fresh issue of 370 and OFS of 370. The OFS route or the OFS proceeds went to Inox Wind, who will use it to pay their debt. and the fresh issue proceeds also used to pay debt as far as Inox Green Energy Services is concerned. Now, talking about Inox Green Energy Services, the company is part of the Inox GFL group. So 3 companies listed from this particular group. So you're talking about Gujarat Fluorochem, you're talking about Inox Wind, and also talking about Inox Green Energy Services. And when you're talking about what the company does, the company majorly is a wind power, operation and maintenance service provider. So O&M services for most of the customers that Inox Wind already has on its books. So how is it that you track the company? You look at the order book of Inox Wind, and that is a key indicator for, the prospects of Inox Green Energy going forward. The management, did come on our channel. They said that one of the key reasons for the IPO was to pare down debt, and they're quite aggressive in terms of wanting to further pare down the debt. They believe at the end of this particular fiscal, with some stake sales in SPVs as well, they should be debt-free and hope to turn profitable by next year.
Okay, all right, Vivek, thanks so much for that. Well, the stock is down close to 9%. Deepan, view on this one?
See, Nigel, we talk about all this renewable energy, but look at the companies engaged in executing the projects. Suzlon was a complete case where debt was zooming up, and it has been a huge value destroyer. Inox Wind as well also has got a very poor track record, and again a value destroyer, was embroiled in losses for many quarters. Then there's Sterling and Wilson, which is engaged in solar projects, and they also got into debt trouble and had to be sold by Shapoorji Pallonji Group to Reliance. So I don't understand that when there's so much of potential for renewable energy, why the engineering construction companies which are engaged in setting up the projects are not great in terms of delivering value or in sustaining their performance. And it's partly to do with the competitive intensity, could be government regulation, imports. One doesn't really know, but these companies really haven't performed in the last, I would say, 10, 15 years or so. And given their poor track record, it's best to avoid any of these companies engaged in setting up projects in the renewable energy space. And that's what's true for a lot of utility companies also, which are aggressively expanding into renewable energy. One needs to be a bit circumspect over there, and I'm not sure whether these are truly profitable businesses. So I would avoid them at this point.
All right, so you're avoiding that one. Deepan, I wanted to ask you about this railway stocks very quickly. RVNL, in the last 10 minutes, the stock has gone to upper circuit. It's locked in upper phrase. Any of them do you like?
I think Ramesh Damani has spoken about these stocks. Suddenly the entire focus has come on these railway companies, and he's a legendary investor with a fabulous track record. So, maybe these stocks are reacting to that particular development. And underlying fundamentals are good for all of these companies, good order book position, cheap valuations, consistent performance, and of course, they want to keep on expanding the network. So it checks most of the boxes. It's just that these are PSU companies, and the track record has not been that impressive, and that's something which you have to compromise on.
Okay, I mean, the move is coming. We're up 60 points. When we started, we had, I think, about 40 odd. So slowly, it's not as dramatic as what we saw yesterday, but it is starting to come through. Let's see if this extends. Now, Indigo is at the high point of the day. It's been pretty strong all through the course of today's session. There's a new brokerage note, and Sonia is here to detail what the note says and what prospects for Indigo are looking like. Sonia, over to you.
Well, thanks a lot for that. As you rightly pointed out, it's a 4% rally that we're seeing on Indigo right now. IIFL has a buy with a target price of 24.20 on Indigo. They say that domestic air traffic has picked up in a big way. In fact, the volumes have almost hit pre-COVID levels now of 400,000 passengers per day. And not just that, the aviation turbine fuel prices are expected to come down from an average of 130 rupees in Q2 of FY23 to 122 in Q3. So that will aid profitability as well. They say the outlook for the business is, good both from a near-term as well as a medium-term perspective. There is a strength in fares, which is a big positive, and the yields are up. Remember, the yields were less than 4 rupees per RPKM pre-COVID, and now the yields have gone to more than 5 rupees or so. So across the board, whether it's the top line or even the profitability, things are definitely improving, and hence they have an aggressive target price.
All right, an aggressive target price coming in on Interglobe Aviation. Thanks a lot for that, Sonia. And just one visit to the airport, and that most of the planes operated, or the longest queues are for the Indigo counters. Deepan, any thoughts on Interglobe Aviation? I mean, now crude has come off, demand still stable. They have market shares. I mean, Do you back this one?
See, the stock keeps on showing promise, but never there's any stock performance per se. I mean, we know all of the positives of Indigo. It's been a well-discovered stock, but whenever the numbers come through, there's always a great deal of disappointment. I think within the travel space, we need to be more focused. Easy Trip Planner was an interesting stock we discussed yesterday. And today there's a company called Rate Gain Technologies also, which is also has a different type of a business model. It's a platform company. You could look at hotel companies as well, Indian Hotels, Mahindra Holiday. I'm trying to work around playing this travel and tourism theme through these niche plays rather than Indigo, because it's never really performed in the last 4 or 5 years or so. And no doubt, I think it's got all the success factors in play, but never really delivers. So when something situation comes like this, it's best to avoid, wait and watch, and look for other ideas within the sector.
All right. Deepan, thank you very much for your time. Great speaking with you. Appreciate you joining in with that perspective. Thank you. Vaibhav Sanghvi is now joining us. By the way, the market's inching up 60 points, 61. So 18,305 is where we're at. Vaibhav, of course, is Chief Executive Officer at Avendus Capital Alternate Strategies. Vaibhav, good to have you with us here. Thank you very much for your time. Do you have a kind of tactical, strong conviction view on market direction right now, Vaibhav, near term?
Sure. So I think, Prashant, let's wait for the Fed minutes today, and we'll get more in terms of what is their view, on the interest rates. Having said that, last Fed meeting has clearly said that the pace of rate hikes going forward is not likely to be as aggressive as what they have already done. So in that respect, Street is anticipating some sense of pivot happening probably in one or two policies going forward. So in that sense, we do think that probably from a shorter end, we may see market continue to inch up higher. And this is especially from a global market perspective, which can have some rub-off effect in India as well. But at the same time, we are looking at a lot of developments in China as well. So a lot to play between global markets, emerging markets, and in emerging markets, China, India, and so on and so forth. So too many moving parts at this point in time, but the momentum is clearly in favor of market continuing to rally, provided we hold on 17,800, 18,000 levels on Nifty.
Okay, all right. Hi, Vaibhav. For the time being, it appears Santa may come to town, right, in December. Going by the positioning, volumes as well are drying up. 17,800 on the downside is a crucial level. How are you positioning yourself, Vaibhav? Currently, you'll run a long short fund. I always try to get that out of you. But which side are you all swinging? I mean, how have you all changed that?
No, I think clearly post-Fed meet, we have kind of slightly increased our our net positions, but that doesn't mean that we have gone to our previous averages, but we have definitely turned a little more constructive. Having said that, we do think that this kind of round of anticipation of decrease in inflation, Fed pivoting, would also accompany with the downgrades of earnings globally as well. So we may be in a period where markets can get a little choppy, but at the same time, the preference on the sectors would be those kind of sectors which will give you relative safety, especially on the earnings front. So that is something which we are looking for.
In that case, I presume you would be looking at domestic-focused sectors, the kinds of banking, consumer, etc. What does one do with IT? I mean, it has corrected a fair bit, global-facing. Valuations-wise supportive, but I mean there is no runway for growth as we see from here in terms of visibility. Is it a shorting opportunity?
See, I think incrementally two trends, among them here is basically one that the type of expenditure, type of spending which is kind of happening from an IT perspective is kind of shifting from a discretionary to probably cost-led replacement. This is something which we are getting on ground from the companies. So when this happen is basically then there is pressure on your pricing and the revenue momentum kind of starts decreasing. Also, we need to understand that when global growth is kind of cracking down, of course you may have some tailwinds in the kind of currencies which we are having, but from a revenue standpoint is where you start to see some amount of pressure apart from the margins. So at this point in time, while valuations are a little higher than their averages, we are still not very constructive, on this one.
By the way, the market's at the day's high. It's kind of, I think, across the day's high, new high for the day, 18,310 right now, and almost there actually. So, the move is coming. 66 now, 70, and there's still 30 minutes to go for close. So things can get better.
May I take credit for the spice that has come by on the market so far?
I mean, Bangla, we have to sing still, right?
No, I don't have to sing. I'll just take credit for the spice.
I mean, Mangalam will sing. We'll come to him in a bit. Vaibhav, what else? I mean, where are you seeing kind of maybe trading opportunities, more tactical kind of opportunities? Because this is that kind of a market, although one wonders whether, unless you are in these momentum sectors, right, PSU banks or railways or defense, whether one is making money, even trading-wise. Any views? Yeah.
No, absolutely, Prashant. I think it's kind of getting a little bit tough, purely because the churn on the sector movement is kind of pretty fast. At the same time, if you look at the medium-term perspective, and that is the way I think everybody should be looking for, especially in the trading community, is try to see that if you are positive on the sectors, on every decline or probably any correction is something where you can probably want to enter for a quick trade. To kind of revert to your mean. So from a medium-term perspective, as kind of it was highlighted, we continue to be bullish on banking, financials, industrials, consumers, and renewables. So those are the kind of opportunities which we are looking for.
Okay, give us some more color, Vaibhav, consumer-related stocks. If you could, just highlight a couple of aspects out there, because it's a very wide range that's present for our audience.
So I think, we need to understand in the light that what I said is basically that those sectors or those companies which gives you relative better earning visibility are the ones who will continue to expand or probably retain their high PEs. So in this case, probably staples at some point in time start, which are the defensive ones, have relatively higher stability in terms of the earnings, given that the domestic, spending is pretty robust. We do think that this is something which will continue to perform going forward. In terms of discretionary, it would be pretty selective, but that is a pocket also. Within specific segments, we can find some amount of opportunities there as well.
Well, Prashant asked me to sing, etc., but I think the ones who would actually be dancing are the ones who would have invested in PSU banks at the start of this year. Vaibhav, you like banking as well. What's your preference there, private or PSU?
The momentum in the PSU banks is pretty strong, but again, I'll continue to believe or probably want to invest in something which is especially on the private side. Now, the way we are looking is basically for the next 2 quarters, we will continue to see robust results, at least on the private and PSU space both. However, if you see that the growth is kind of slowing down, and you may see some amount of pressures probably coming into SMEs. Probably half a year down the line is where you may see that PSUs to start getting under pressure at some point in time. But till then, I think we are in good space from a banking perspective, both private and public.
The bhujia maker, Bikaji, look at the sharp pop actually. It's up 10%. It's a 30 rupee move on Bikaji. Recent debut, of course. And the move started at about 215 or so, and it's up about 20-25 rupees in the last 40 minutes or so.
Spicing it up. That's,
absolutely
I think it's Mangalam. only Chakna.
For me, the thing is, Bikaji is, I hail from Bikaner, right? So we take our bhujia very seriously.
Yeah.
But the love that you have for the namkeen, the Bikaji, I mean, I think I should take you to Bikaner one of these days.
I recently found out, maybe, I don't know if you guys, maybe Mangalam would be aware, that Haldiram and Bikaji,
they're the same family.
Same family, same brothers.
Yes.
Came as a surprise to me, frankly. But of course, I mean, Haldiram is also on track. We reported recently for an IPO, etc. So this is a space which is, I think, of course, I mean, Haldiram is much bigger, far larger entity, the biggest ethnic snacks company in India. But Bikaji, of course.
There's this beautiful book called The Bhujia Barons. It talks about the Agarwal family. It has a family tree of who started the bhujia, and there was this person called Mr. Haldiram Agarwal, and there was his grandchildren who made the Haldiram's brand, which was Shiv Kishan Agarwal, etc. And then came from there, branched out Bikaner Wala, Bikaji, etc., all of that. So all of bhujia in India can be traced to that Agarwal family, and the annual combined total revenue of those families in just selling bhujia is actually higher than what you would see in a lot of these QSR guys as well. I mean, more bhujia than burgers.
Absolutely. And it's actually true. Why would you compare the bhujia makers and the ethnic snacks companies? We were comparing it to Pratap Snacks, packaged foods, right?
Yeah.
But actually, it's competition for the QSR. I mean, it's an alternate food, right? Because they're not just selling you bhujia, although we are talking about bhujia, but they're selling you all kinds of stuff.
People talk about share of voice, share of mind and all that. I just say share of stomach.
All right, so that's a lot of bhujia talk for you. We'll come back. There's some news on the Fisc, and this is good news. We learned from government officials that government is unlikely to deviate from the fiscal glide path in the budget. I mean, the glide path basically calls for, a slight glide in terms of the fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP. There were concerns around this, especially because international fertilizer prices were through the roof. The government had to provision for another round of fertilizer subsidy after what they'd already done in the FY23 budget earlier in the year. Sapna is here with details. Sapna, over to you.
Well, what we are clearly given to understand at this point in time is that the government is intending to stick to its fiscal consolidation glide path in the coming budget. This would mean basically a steady reduction in the fiscal deficit aim by 60 to 70 basis points every year over the next 3 years. Now, their aim is to bring it down below 4.5% by FY26. So, 60 to 70 basis points reduction every year starting from the next financial year would basically, bring them somewhere over there. Now, this year's aim is 6.4%. If they are able to meet or rather maintain this aim, then a 60 basis points reduction next year would mean somewhere around a 5.8 to 5.9% deficit aim, even with the marginal slippage this year. So, more or less, they are very clear on the fiscal consolidation glide path, and at least as of now, there's a clear intent to stick to that, and maybe the coming budget could enumerate or flesh out at least some of these important numbers that we're talking about.
All right, Sapna, thanks a lot for that. Vaibhav, since we were talking so much about bhujia, etc., I just wanted to know whether you're keen on this one, not the snack, the stock. 350, closer to 345 rupees on the counter. I mean, it was offered at over 58, 60 times 1 year forward earnings, and now it's only increased from those levels. At what point does it become too spicy in terms of valuations?
So unfortunately, I think, Mangalam, I would not be able to because we have conflicted on this. But in overall space of snacks, India as a company or India as a country will continue to absorb or probably keep on using those kind of snacks very aggressively. So there is an adequate market, good amount of growth opportunities. With the right management and distribution network, we can see many companies doing well in this whole segment.
Okay, all right, Vaibhav, always good hearing your thoughts. Thanks so much for stopping by, speaking to us, and also being a little patient with that bhujia talk. Look forward to chatting up with you and maybe meeting up with you in the coming days.
He's going to grab a handful of bhujia right after this conversation because we whetted his appetite.
Absolutely.
Okay, Vaibhav, thanks so much for that.
Thanks.
Well, we'll slip into a short break.
You should tease Mangalam's song, which comes up next.
I don't know whether there is a song or not.
So we'll slip into a short break. We come back, maybe Mangalam 6 for us. We'll also get in Nimesh. He'll do the real serious talking. He'll tell us what's going on in terms of dealing room chatter. Don't go anywhere.
Choose a better route and aim to stay ahead with HDFC Business Cycle Fund. NFO closes 25th November 2022. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
रास्ता तो खत्म हो गया। 10 बजे तक दूध पहुंचाना है। दूध खराब हो गया तो दिन खराब हो जाएगा।
टाटा योद्धा 2.0, जहां जमीन है वहां रास्ते हैं।
Will snow days be a thing of the past? Or are we smarter than that?
To make my vision a reality, I have to see clearly from every point of view. With my Verilux progressive lenses, I seamlessly transition from near to far and see every detail in sharp focus. When you see no limits, there are no limits. Verilux lenses by Essilor.
लड़की होने का मतलब ये नहीं कि बंदिशों से दोस्ती कर लो। कामयाबी हौसला देखती है, जेंडर नहीं। इसलिए लाइफ तुम्हारी, रूल्स भी तुम्हारे।
सिग्नेचर ग्लोबल आपके इसी अंदाज को सल्यूट करता है। इंडिपेंडेंट फ्लोर्स फॉर द इंडिपेंडेंट यू।
नई वॉशिंग मशीन।
अच्छा है।
क्या हुआ?
अरे शॉपिंग पे 2000 का कैशबैक मिला है, बस क्यूआर कोड स्कैन करना है।
अच्छी धुलाई होगी
है ना?
बैंक अकाउंट की पैसे रिसीव करते समय क्यूआर कोड स्कैन, पिन या ओटीपी की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती, वो सिर्फ पेमेंट के लिए चाहिए होती है। इसलिए अनजान कोड या लिंक से सावधान रहिए और नुकसान से बचिए।
बच गए धुलाई से।
ये नई धुलाई। अब यह कहता है कि
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Welcome back. Just when you thought you were breaking away, well, the bears have come back. And we have seen some bit of selling from the day's high. Close around 40 points down take is what we've seen. Titan has moved to the low point of the day. Nestle has moved a little bit lower. And I think HUL as well has seen a bit of a downtake in the last few minutes. But I think one of the heavier stocks would have fallen. Maybe Infosys. You pull up the intraday chart out there. I think that's moved a little bit low. And that's why we've shaved off. So clearly the bears, as we said at the start of the show, they are playing that 18,350 level, will hold out, at least in this series, and it appears it's going according to script as we speak.
Nigel, the Nifty Bank, that's the one which has also slipped about 150 points from the top just as we speak. We were looking at the Nifty Bank for most part of the day, actually most part of the show sitting higher with almost 400 points. There you have it, about 135 points lower on the Nifty Bank as well from the top.
Yeah, so let's pull up just three stocks, the HDFC twins, if we can get the intraday charts of both those two, and Infosys. That's a large part of the index that we're talking about. And all those three stocks, they have come off a goodish bit. So explains why, in fact, the Nifty has come off. But Nimesh is standing by. So let's get straight to D Street Chatter. Nimesh, what are you picking up in terms of flows, in terms of action? How are you reading it?
Hi, Nigel. Just one day before the expiry, and we are still in that very narrow range for the last few days. And that's been the trend today as well. I guess the last 2 days of flows will not be too material because there will be a lot of the F&O adjustments as well. So not to read too much into it, but the overall feedback is there is lack of interest now from both institutional investors as well as the local and HNI. So that's something. There is lack of participation now from the large institutions. I guess the sector rotation continues. So today the fertilizer stocks are doing good. No specific reasons for the sector to do well, but looks like it's more of a sector churn. I guess the only sector which is really doing good, and that's why there is a lot of interest as well, is the financial basket, and within that the PSU bank stands out. Every day there is consistent buying interest from the larger institutions, so that stands out as far as the participation is concerned. But again, we have the expiry tomorrow, so that needs to be seen. But I guess around 18,300, 18,400 is where the expiry seems to be looking at the data. But from a participation point of view, there is lack of participation from both domestic investors as well as the local investors.
All right, Nimesh, thanks for that. But in terms of individual stocks, what's on your chatter list?
Hi, Prashant. So the first name on my list is IndusInd Bank. As I said, there is consistent buying in the financial basket, and IndusInd stands out today purely on back of buy flows. In fact, the bank met some large investors as well. There was an investor day yesterday, so there is a bit of interest back in this particular stock, and there were a couple of brokerage notes as well. So that's the first stock. The second stock is Kirloskar Oil. If you look at the chart for this month, the stock is up 30-odd%. This year, the stock is up 80-odd%. And been a big outperformer. Now there is a chatter of a large block deal coming soon. It's going to be a pretty large 14-15% equity likely to change hands in Kirloskar Oil soon, and hence that stock should be in focus. The third stock is Som Distilleries. Again, this stock is locked at 5% upper circuit today. Good volumes in today's trade. There was a 10 lakh share block as well. I believe in terms of participants, some domestic PMS and few large HNIs participate on the buy side, and hence that stock is in focus today. And the last stock is Fino Payments Bank. A big move in that stock, locked at 20% upper circuit. In fact, there was a large block in Fino Payment Bank as well, and the block actually happened at the upper end of the circuit. So that's where a lot of interest seems to be, and hence that stock is locked at upper circuit. And the feedback is maybe the seller was a clean out trade, and hence there is a lot of activity in that stock as well today.
All right, take that point, Nimesh. Thanks a lot for that. Let's also go to Mitesh Thakkar to tell you what to buy or sell today for a reverse trade tomorrow. Mitesh, what does one do? Because tomorrow we don't have the US Qs coming in.
Yeah. So I think, I think while the US markets will be closed, I think on the individual basis, I think our markets are still, as I said, contracting. So basically trading is more stock specific basis. I have one buy and one sell. JSW Steel is something which is showing good traction on the intraday charts and possibly could see follow through for the next coming few days. There's a BTST with a stop at 713, 735 being the target for tomorrow. And emphasis on the IT side is making new lows. The structure is very weak, so this could see further downside bias, and that's a STBT with a stop at 1915 for targets of 1875.
All right, Mitesh, thanks a lot for that. Meanwhile, just keep an eye on a couple of stocks. Nigel, you spoke about RVNL hitting that upper circuit. Following it is RailTel. So all these rail stocks are doing extremely well. A 9% up move is what we're seeing on RailTel. Ircon is the other one, which is up 8%. And if you see, most of the gains have come by in just the last 15 odd minutes or so, even as the market's just about hovering in the green terrain. But one stock that's actually doing extremely well is Kalyan Jewellers. Has been doing very well for the last few months. Maybe the valuation gap between Titan and Kalyan or the discount that Kalyan trades at is something that the street is noticing right now, because if you just take a look at it, last few months of Kalyan and compare that to the last few months of Titan, you'll realize maybe, from the start of this year, Titan has actually been a negative performer, whereas Kalyan, this is for the last 1 month. A longer time horizon will tell you, okay, Kalyan Jewellers is up 39% as against Titan, which is up just around 7.5%, 8%. That's for the last 3 months. And for the entire year, Titan is up just about 3 odd %, and Kalyan Jewellers up much higher, much more than that. So that's a bit of a pair trade that is taking place out there. We also have Mayuresh Joshi with us. Mayuresh, are you looking at the jewelry space, and in that, any thoughts on Kalyan and Titan?
Afternoon, Mangalam. No, obviously, I think the valuation gap, as you're saying, is rightfully there. And valuations for Titan have always been on the higher side. If you probably just look at the numbers, very good set of numbers by both the players. Kalyan on a lower base has probably given better numbers sequentially as well. But Titan, again, being a leadership stock at this point of time, continues to remain on our global focus lists. Obviously, from a pivot standpoint, it's 6 to 7% of the pivot, which means close to around 2,750, is where I think more momentum will come into the stock. But generally, I think expecting 30 odd lakh weddings expected over the next few months, large expectations in terms of organized jewelry actually picking up market share for Titan. That should hold up very well in terms of both the gold business as well as the studded business, where margins are relatively higher. The watches business has held out in the last few quarters as well. I think largely urban-centric demand has probably held that up as well. And therefore, I think the consolidated EBIT numbers seem to be better. So I think valuations always remain a big sticky point for Titan. But our own sense is that if it crosses that key pivot level of 2,700, 2,750 on the O'Neill lens, maybe momentum comes back with the market leader like that.
All right. I mean, Titan, of course, is one of the few names in the Nifty, one amongst, I think, 14 or 15 names, which is still seeing upgrades. At the end of Q2, at the end of Q1, and that is the reason why the stock generally has continued to do well. We'll take a break here. More market talk. We're also heading into market close. 14 minutes to close. Stay with us. We're back with more on the other side.
झाके रे झाके झरोखे से झाके हैरत से आंखें अपनी सी दुनिया नई रंगी लागे ख्यालों की खिड़की से मन कूदे भागे झाके रे झाके झरोखे से झाके दंग है छोटे बड़े सारे झाके रे झाके हर कोई ताके तरक्की को टुक टुक हर कोई ताके झाके
Imagineering brighter futures with smarter steels. ArcelorMittal, Nippon Steel India. Smarter steels, brighter futures.
कंस्ट्रक्शन बहुत तगड़ा है।
क्या भाई साहब, जो साइट विजिट ना दिखाए 99 एकर्स बताए। घर लेना हो या बेचना, एक्सपर्ट से ही पूछना। 99acres.com।
आपका नाम है? हाँ जी। हाँ जी। कैनरा AI1 बैंकिंग सुपर ऐप यूज किया है? हाँ जी। IPO के लिए अप्लाई कर सकते हैं? हाँ जी। फास्ट टैग, मोबाइल रिचार्ज, कार बुकिंग? हाँ जी। हाँ जी। हाँ जी। इस ऐप में रंग बदल सकते हैं? हाँ जी। क्या आप रंग बदल रहे हैं? हाँ जी।
Canara Bank presents AI1, the all-in-one banking super app loaded with over 250 features for all your banking needs and more. आपके सपने हमारे अपने।
क्या ये सच बोल रहा है?
हाँ जी।
To make my vision a reality, I have to see clearly from every point of view. With my Verilux progressive lenses, I seamlessly transition from near to far and see every detail in sharp focus. When you see no limits, there are no limits. Verilux lenses by Essilor.
Choose a better route and aim to stay ahead with HDFC Business Cycle Fund. NFO closes 25th November 2022. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Okay, welcome back. Just 11 minutes to go for close. And, like the last couple of days, a lot of action in the last 1 hour. Till 2:30, nothing happened. After 2:30, the market creeped higher by about 30-40 points. And 3 o'clock, it just dumped. I mean, exactly at 3 is the high. And look at that sharp, sharp fall. Almost similar picture on the Nifty Bank as well. Exactly 3 p.m. is when the dump came. And, you'll be able to see where that's the thing. It's, of course, more prominent on the Nifty, but the Bank Nifty also falling quite sharply after 3 o'clock. Well, let's quickly get you some market opinion that we got in from Nilesh Shah of Envision Capital. We spoke with him on his top sectoral bets. He actually was generous enough to share some stock-specific ideas as well. Listen in.
Believe that the lows that we've seen in 22, I don't think we're going to revisit those lows. What it looks like, I think, is from the kind of layoffs that we are seeing in the United States. Finally, the indirect fallout of that is going to be essentially a better environment for hiring, better environment for wage costs. That, in a way, will provide a strong cushion to the margins of IT companies. While growth for the next 3 to 4 quarters could still be on the lower side of the range, but I think that's probably going to be a more transient kind of a phase. And maybe 2 or 3 quarters from now, you will see again, IT come back very, very strongly. And I think the valuations are very, very attractive. So you're going to see a combination of growth coming back, margins coming back, and then, of course, valuations being attractive, perfect for growth investing. Fraud that we saw on pre-IPO or IPO or even post-listing, that is kind of completely gone out. What it looks like is that the valuations are attractive, especially for a long-term investor. I honestly don't know how these will behave over the next few quarters. But if you have maybe a 2 to 3 year kind of outlook, I wouldn't be surprised if these end up delivering some solid returns. Not all of them, but maybe just to select 1 or 2 out of them. Currently, in the very short term, the pressure from essentially the investors who came in the IPO or pre-IPO, I think that pressure will continue because they all need to book some profits or whatever profits are left out there for them by the year end. The one that we own, I think, is PB Fintech. They have essentially demonstrated strong growth. They no longer are having any cash burns. They get basically adjusted EBITDA break-even by Q4 of this year. And they've guided for reporting accounting profits next year. Leadership continues, 90% plus market share. A bit of the environmental or the regulatory risk remains in terms of how Bima Sugam will play out and what it means for their economics. But otherwise, I think that seems to be a kind of a great name. They have been able to manage competitive intensity relatively well. So that's probably a standout one among the entire kind of pack. It's probably been the most disappointing kind of sector in terms of performance, especially from if we were to kind of look at the COVID environment and where we all thought that over the next few years, pharma is going to be a standout sector, and that has unfortunately not played out that way. And I don't see yet any kind of silver lining out there in terms of, the pricing. I think it's still a hope trade that, too much of the pricing erosion has happened and all of that. But I still think overhang in terms of pricing, in terms of regulatory stuff, in terms of margins. They still kind of continue to kind of be there. The reality is that there are, way many more number of other opportunities, many more other sectors which are today firing or at least are expected to do much, much better, especially on a risk-adjusted basis. So I'm not too sure whether pharma, it's not gone anywhere, but I don't think it will go anywhere.
Okay, all right. Nilesh, briefly spoke about PB Fintech. Mayuresh, what's your view on that? From the highs, it's seen a sharp decline in terms of valuations. But from this new age theme, do you like PB Fintech?
Afternoon, Nigel. I think we're a little bit on the sidelines when all these new age companies are concerned, Nigel. I think at the time of listing and the huge momentum and the tailwinds that they carried, it was not sustainable. And I think as valuations are coming off quite significantly, a lot of supply coming in a lot of these stocks as well. And I think the larger issue that probably lies for the larger universe is how the bottom line growth will be. First, for a few companies, there has to be some amount of profitability that has to be exhibited. For a few more, I think consistency in those numbers have to probably come through for better multiples to be probably levied in terms of either FY24 or FY25 numbers. So having a look at all this and on the OD lens, I think both the EPS RS rating is very, very weak at this point of time. At some point, they will bounce back, Nigel. But our own sense is that there are better sectors and stocks to probably look at this point.
Are you looking at the railway stocks, Mayuresh? I mean, we've been talking about how they've moved and the last few minutes have been crazy for them. RVNL, Railtel, Aircon, you name anything, all of them are doing well.
Oh, absolutely, Mangalam. I think it's both an impetus in terms of capital spending expected by the government over the next few quarters and the large expectations in terms of a decent chunk probably coming to the railways as well. We've already seen decent announcements that have come through, both in terms of Vande Bharat trains. You're probably looking at more improvements happening as far as the railway infrastructure is concerned as well. You're probably looking at signaling, so on and so forth. You're also probably looking at more metro rails, wagons, so on and so forth being ordered at this point of time. So I think a combination in terms of the order flows that are expected for these railway companies, the expectations in terms of existing order books giving good revenue visibility over the next few quarters and years, the new orders coming with better margins. And because of the strict timelines, the kind of working capital constraints that they used to face earlier, I think would come off. And the projects are better margin projects as well, which means better operating leverage for a lot of these companies under focus as well. So yeah, I think tremendous momentum for these stocks as well. But also keep in focus, I think what we're liking as a sub-segment, Mangalam, and this is the bearing stocks. Have a look at the bearing space itself. I think not only does it provide to railways, to wagon makers, which are going to be significant for the next few quarters, but even industrial applications are huge. The industry size itself expected to double from 1.8 billion to almost 3.6 odd billion. And the large expectations in terms of input costs coming off will mean margin expansion for a few of these bearing stocks, which are closely related to railway companies as well. So Timken, SKF India can be something that can be kept on the lens.
Take that point, Mayuresh. Thank you for joining in and giving us a view on a whole host of stocks. We bring back Mitesh in because a lot of stocks are actually doing well in an otherwise wobbly market. The Nifty is just about 10 points away from actually going into the red. We have PVR, which has moved to the high point of trade, and in doing so, it's actually turned positive for the month as well. Mitesh, PVR, I mean, a lot of people do believe that films are back, given the sort of collections that Drishyam and Kantara suggested, but do you believe that the chart suggests that the stock could be back as well, or maybe there are a lot more resistances ahead than supports?
So nothing happening here on the long term or the medium term charts, but the short term charts are at least turned positive. I think there could be a pop-up happening over here with some traction on the upside, 1850 being the first target. That was the high which the stock made 2.5 weeks back. And if that is crossed in the best case scenario, I think 1930, 1940 on the upside. I'm not very sure of further upside, so it's a trading bet.
All right, Mitesh, thank you very much. Good speaking with you. Appreciate you joining in. I mean, so we end basically absolutely flat, 10-point change, 18,256. That flourish we saw after 245 all but disappeared in the last 30 minutes of trade, starting exactly 3, as we've been pointing out. So, so that's the Nifty for you. The banks, pretty much similar kind of picture, although the bank Nifty ending with a little more in terms of gains, but quite a bit off the highs. Mid caps and small caps did better than the Nifty, at least, 0.25% each, 1/3% in that range. Market breadth was consequently positive, not by much, but it was positive. Gains on the Nifty coming through in names like Apollo Hospitals, JSW Steel, HDFC Life, Bajaj Finance, SBI and BPCL. Adani Group stocks like Enterprises and Ports both were down. Power Grid was the other one which was down around. But lots of activity, Nigel, in broader markets.
Well, that's right. A few of these, railway stocks, they've been flying away. You had RVNL, well, that stock was up and about. You had IRCON, well, that stock as well did pretty well in trade today. Rainbow Medicare, remember the stock saw a bit of a correction after hitting a 52-week high. Well, today it bounced back. It was up close to around 5%. You had High-Tech Pipes, well, they're looking at a pref issue, so that one as well did pretty well in trade today. And Jacket, that's suddenly come back in style in this month itself. It's up close to around 35%. Today it was up close to around 4%. And a couple of the other auto ancillary names as well, like Talbros, that stock did pretty well. AstraZeneca from the pharma pack, well, that one did pop up and trade. But all in all, a pretty flattish session, as we highlighted earlier, that at higher levels, you are seeing some bit of a supply that's coming in there. And that's why the Nifty failed to hold on to that 18,300 odd mark. Mangalam, what else?
Well, in the second half of trade, we had more decliners than gainers. So as a result of which, the advanced decline lines came much closer to each other towards the close. And talking about a lot of the decliners, the mid-cap end of things, the new age companies, they continue to see weakness. Paytm, a fresh low for that stock as well, ended at the low point of trade with a cut of almost 6% odd. Zomato ended lower by about 3.5–4% odd. We did see some weakness in delivery as well. And Nykaa continues to weaken, and this weakness is on account of the big resignation that came by of the CFO. Last couple of days were good for Ease My Trip. Today, we saw some profit taking, so the stock ended about 4% lower. But in terms of gainers, we had a few of them. Fino Payment Bank, Nimesh did allude to that in his chatter. The stock ended about 20% higher up in upper circuit. Fertilizer stocks did extremely well, so be it RCF, Deepa Fertilizers, all of them doing quite well. Bikaji, the new listing, ended with an upper circuit. Kalyan Jewelers up 9%. And finally, we had RHI Magnesita. That was the stock that, has been doing well for the last few trading sessions ever since the deal that they had with Dalmia for that refractory addition. In fact, the stock is up almost 22% this week. So we did have a lot of mid-caps that gained, but a lot of the losers actually came to the fore towards the end of trade, as a result of which the net result was a flat close across all major indices. The Nifty bank stood out with a gain of 0.5%, but then again, that was off highs.
Well, on that note, though, we'll have to wrap up on this edition of Closing Bell, but don't go anywhere. Inside Out comes up on the other side.